So I think this goes to this whole concept of unreasonable hospitality, giving people way more than they expect. And we had this built in Nutanix from day one. In many ways, we were using flaky substrates, and we had to just plow through all that stuff. The first 3-4 years were like, man, we're gonna die. It's our code versus the rest of the environment in some ways. We had to support it. We actually did things that technically we were not supposed to do. But it was the stuff that was around us, because the product was not just our software.
Thank you for joining us, Dheeraj. I think what you have here in the room are search founders. They companies that are maybe just about to launch, all the way through companies with not as much revenue as Nutanix has, but
Getting there.
100 million. Yeah, they're getting there. Okay. So, Dheeraj, I'm going to start with Nutanix, DevRev's. You obviously have seen lots of startup journeys. As you look at a room full of early stage founders, right? Like, what are the, I don't know, let's call it 3 or 4 most important things that you'd like this group to take away?
So, I've been an entrepreneur for now 16 years, and even before that, I used to take risks in life. But the things that I have always kind of stayed constant on, one is, how do you sleep well? And that comes by not being, worrying about what's out there in the media, about competition, about big companies, and so on and so forth. So I think there's a lot of people who actually spend a lot of time reading social media and then processing a lot of what competitors' marketing machine is actually doing, and they get frazzled by that. And they start to think about, well, if they're doing that, what do we do, as opposed to, well, you have a bird in hand, the few customers that you have, just go and make them successful. So I know it's a cliche to say this, but really knowing how to keep focus. And focus is not just about features and products and segments, and it's also about, like, how do you actually completely keep away from the noise that's happening in the market? You have to compete with yourself. That's the most important thing.
So focus on things you can control.
Yes.
Yeah, because a lot of founders get very frazzled.
Absolutely. And the other piece is the bird in hand. A lot of founders that I know of, they sell and run, as opposed to
sell and run.
Run being, okay, this account is done, now the next account, and the next account, and the next customer, and so on, as opposed to, how do you make more money from the existing customer? Because it took so long to really get to that first level of trust. And as you know, I think trust really comes one drop at a time. So to go and really upsell and go deep and really make them just delighted, is really, really important. And a lot of people just keep going to new accounts and new customers and so on. And I think finally, the core idea, how does it really, when you start out, is such a good platform idea that if you have to navigate the changing world, like in our world, we started out at DevRev's with saying data is core to us. That's one thing that if you can do really well, then nobody can touch us. Now, how the data can now be used to not just power apps, but also agents, with the exact same 80-90% of the stuff being the same, gives you that kind of a base on which you can go and micro pivot and change as the market's changing. So knowing what your base foundation is, what your core moat is also really, really important.
I think in the room, Dheeraj, we have founders who are like 0 to 1. They're looking for PMF. And there are founders who are have found PMF, they're in scale-up mode. So I want to ask you 2 questions. One is, how do you think about PMF, whether it's at Nutanix or DevRev? And then the second question is, once you have it, then how do things change, and how should things change?
So look, PMF is a journey. At 1 million, at 10 million, at 50, 100, half a billion, a billion, you're constantly trying to figure out, okay, how do I get a bigger TAM? And it's as hard at 1 billion as it is at 1 million. So never think that you have gotten PMF, because the more you grow, the more your ambition grows, the more your expectations from everybody else around you grows as well, and it's just as hard at 1 million as it is at 1 billion. But the core thing, I want to get back to the point number 2 I made in my previous question, is, can you get half your quarter done with existing customers?
Half your quarter?
Yeah, if you can. And obviously, initially it'll be 10%, maybe even nothing, to 5 to 10 to 15 to 20. But if you feel like you can basically get upsell to be half your quarter. Now you know that you've built trust, and these existing accounts are willing to give you more. That to me is the flywheel. Like you're getting half your business from new customers, and the flywheel is getting better because you've reduced friction. You have a lot of case studies and references, and the power of social proof, and you are really doing it by standing on the shoulders and using the voice of the existing customer. So that to me is the definition. Like
That's actually a good one, actually, right?
And obviously, as growth starts to peter away, it starts to become 60, 70, 80, 90. And if it gets to 80, 85, 90, now you're in danger zone again because you're not selling to new accounts enough, So it's one of those things you have to balance well. You cannot overdo it and you cannot underdo it.
Yeah. Now, what about, actually one of the, when we hosted you in Bangalore, you had spoken about this big enterprise selling, doing what it takes. I think you got Walmart to several hundred million, just one account.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about like go-to-market, maybe double-click, building go-to-market. Now, 70% of the room is building B2B companies, many of them enterprise, but also mid-market. Tell us a little bit about go-to-market and how do you build these whale accounts?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, just like Rome was not built in a day, that $250 million account started with a 300K deal. And you do a good job of 300K, they'll give you $1 million. If you do a good job of $1 million, they'll give you $2 million and so on. So, customer success is like oxygen. It's everywhere, and it's still hard to actually figure out a way to really make money on oxygen, Everybody says, stay healthy, sleep well, breathe well, eat well, and then work out. These things are easier said than done. Everything I just said about life is equally true about customer success and getting more from existing customers. They all start small because initially they're actually really worried about messing up. And a lot of these large companies, they have managers, including people in procurement and security folks and so on, whose only job is to make sure that they protect the company. It's about mitigating risk. And there'll be one-offs, people who actually want to really go and take some risks, and they're innovators and early adopters, but they get these other people, including lawyers, procurement, and security, and all this stuff that's, no, you're supposed to really slow down. So, obviously, as you go into cloud and more data, you're becoming not just a data processor, but also somebody who's a custodian of the data. You have to be really good with security. I can tell you that it's one thing that we all miss. So the more you can left shift certifications and things of that nature, the better you're building trust, and you're reducing friction with your larger enterprise and so on. But at the core, the large enterprise does business with people, and all of us here, you have to go build relationships, and many of us actually have kind of grown up in social media world where we don't have to talk to people like face to face and so on. But when you can have that 90-minute discussion, look them in the face, they know that you're somebody who's genuine. All of a sudden, you've actually reduced one less thing that they worry about, which is, what if these guys are shady? One part of it is like, hey, what are you valued at and how much money you have in the bank? And they're looking for all those sort of things as well to figure out peace of mind. But more than anything, they're like, you know what? This is a genuine person. I want to really do business with them. Let me give them a try, And I think initially you have to really go in and lean in as opposed to expect, something in return right away. But if you've done your homework well around security, around the fact that you'll put people behind it, because these larger companies don't have enough people. So you'll have to put people behind it, which means focus again, as opposed to let me do 10, 15, 20 accounts at the same time. If I can do 2 of them really well, I will get the next 5 and the next 7 from then on. And I think they care about not being your tester. They don't want to be your tester.
They don't want to be your tester, but how do you get the first one then? Or like the first few?
So in startups, selling to startups, they're like, look, there's enough churn built in PLG. Who cares if I lose half of these guys if I can keep the other half? That's the way a lot of the PLG mindset is. Somehow churn is normalized.
It's built in, right? But big enterprise, that doesn't work.
Even in the mid-market, they're like, look, don't make me your tester. And what does that even mean? It means that you care. If you were paranoid to begin with, because that's one of the things that a lot of us need to really figure out. We're optimistic on one side, we're gung-ho, we're rah-rah, we're selling to investors, we're selling to candidates, we're selling to prospects and so on, but we don't understand that when we actually end the day, we have to figure out how to be paranoid again. So this balance, the paradox of optimism and paranoia, where they see you being really good at quality. Quality is one of the most unsung features of not just Bangalore and Mumbai, but also, any startup, sort of world.
Quality as in, does the product work? Is that what you mean by
Product
quality?
and service, whatever service.
Quality of service.
Yeah, I mean, your service, your product, is it actually done well? And I don't know of any good product, like high quality product, that has found it hard to really do well. Eventually, if you just give it in some time, maybe you're not positioned well, maybe you're trying to go head on against the incumbency right away. So the market will give you opportunities to really go and kind of be tangential, maybe coexist for a while, and eventually they'll give you a chance. So high quality, and that's just a proxy for how paranoid you are about where things will break. So your enterprise or mid-market doesn't have to be your tester, really.
Don't be a tester, okay. And just building on this, one of the things you'd also said was, a lot of our founders, especially selling into enterprise, worry a lot about services. If a customer wants some stuff done, they don't really want to do it because their VC is telling them, look, be capital efficient, be people efficient, don't throw people at it. But you have a very different, or at least Nutanix, the way you guys built it, you had a very different approach to, as you said, right? Like, how do you grow Walmart from $300,000 to $200 million a year? Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about that. I think it'll be good, especially for our B2B founders, to hear about that approach that you have.
Yeah. So I think this goes to this whole concept of unreasonable hospitality. I didn't use the word
unreasonable hospitality.
Yeah. There's a good book that a couple of Michelin star restaurateurs, his name is Will Guidara, has written a really good book on giving people way more than they expect. And we had this built in Nutanix from day one. Because look, if you look at our substrate, it was commodity hardware, which the cloud guys were able to cull out 20% infant mortality, throw it away before you really go and install, hundreds of thousands, millions of servers on a, yearly basis. But we had to figure out a way that we don't go and say, look, 20% of the hardware fails, because that's what commodity was built with. We also had a substrate in VMware, which was kind of the thing underneath us, because we were trying to virtualize a lot of hardware in pure software. We needed an operating system. That thing had never seen a load like us. So in many ways, we were using flaky substrates, and we had to just plow through all that stuff. The first 3-4 years were like, man, we're going to die. There's no way this thing will ever work. Thrice, we actually had a near-death experience, all because of product. And it was not our software. It's the stuff that's around us. It's our code versus the rest of the environment in some ways. We had to support it. The whole idea of HP, Dell, and the American server companies was they do best support, they'll give you all this. Like, if you're taking Taiwanese hardware to enterprise, who's going to support it? We said we're going to support it. Eventually, people said, hey, VMware is pesky, it's hard to upgrade. Can you guys upgrade VMware?
So, and you do that?
We did that. We said, look, in our orchestrator, we do all this stuff anyway. We take care of Supermicro issues. Intel came to us saying, look, we just re-architected our CPU platform and we put memory on the CPU. It's buggy. We need to do firmware upgrades every 2-3 months. Who's going to do it? And somebody had to do it at scale across thousands of servers. We said, we'll do it. We actually did things that technically we were not supposed to do. But it was the stuff that was around us, because the product was not just our software. It was the fact that
we had to get everything else to work.
Yeah, because all this stuff had to work around us, and then we could say we have a private cloud. Because otherwise, you're just throwing some bits over the wall. There were atoms around us that had to work along with the bits that we had. People came and said the application running in your environment is slow. It's, the Cisco switch is flaking out. We took care of all that stuff. And we knew that if we had long-term greed with these customers, they remember these things. That you took care of me, my Oracle issue, my Microsoft issue, my Cisco issue, without asking any question. Support, we were probably spending, I don't know, at 2020, we're doing $2 billion in software. We're spending about $150 million in support. And it was the best profit center kind of decision we had ever made, because many people look at it as a cost center. We said, if we have to go deep, we have to build awesome support. Look at any brand in the world, any brand, good brand, they have amazing customer service. And it's not a correlation, it's a causation. If you have great customer service, you'll have a great brand out there as well, So, that's what we did. Today with AI, it goes a little further with forward deployed engineering. You got to really do a solution, not just throw bits over the wall. And the world has come to accept it. If you can weave it into your pricing and packaging with subscription, because what do we deliver? We deliver data with connectors, we deliver code with workflows, we deliver weights with models and prompts. We have to deliver data, code, and weights. It is not something you can just throw over the wall. There's a problem statement. You're competing with human agency, payroll, AI is supposed to do all that. You're supposed to really map these things and go deliver on data, code, and weights. It's going to be engineers. We call them applied AI engineers. That's my problem. It's not the customer's problem, So I think the world is, if you look at 20 years ago, when we used to sell and say, now it's your problem to integrate, to SaaS, where SaaS said, we're going to integrate hardware, upgrade software, all this stuff, and we'll give you APIs and you guys can basically up-level yourself to where we are now. AI has to compete with human payroll. It's not just competing in a $500 billion market, it's competing in a $5 trillion market. So the TAM is big, but the problem statements in integration and really looking at solutioning something and going and delivering applied AI is a problem that's an extension of customer support.
Yeah, I think these are great lessons. I think this notion of unreasonable hospitality. Be interesting for all of you to ask yourselves, right? Are you really...
And read the book, guys. It's a really good read. There's a YouTube video on this as well. But what does it mean to give people way more than they expect? Because there is this inherent delight built in, and they remember what you did. Like yesterday, we were the largest bank in this country. And they said, Dheeraj, I know when I tell you this, I know it's not your thing, but can you put 2 of your people in my scrums?
And what do you do?
I said, absolutely, no question. I don't even send you a PO for this. I'll do it for free because I know there's multiple millions coming right after this. So long-term.
And would you do that even like, of course, now you can with your new company, but in the early days of Nutanix, were you
always,
still do that?
Always. Look,
where did that come from, by the way? I mean, that's not like not like an engineer view of the world.
Look, I was an engineer because somebody had to do an undergrad and then a grad. I just wanted to get, I did well. I was a third in my class. I was a fellow at UT Austin. But it was a way to solve problems. I was basically,
So where did you get this ethos from? Because, from the early days of Nutanix, that's a whole different ethos.
I think we believed in people. I couldn't sleep well if I was actually being disingenuous in my business. I knew that the only way to build trust was to give before you get. And one thing leads to another. I was a very people-centric guy even before that. I was one of the youngest sort of managers in Oracle database. Bipul and I, so Bipul is the CEO of Rubrik. We were peers for 4 years and we really related to people. And we said, look, we're doing this thing because we have a job, but what do we really want to go and do is connect with people and sell to people and buy from people and so on.
That's terrific. Okay, let's tell us a little bit about DevRev, the new company. Why did you get down this path? Because it's another really big, audacious idea, right?
Yeah. So I'd spent 20 years building data systems, clustered file servers, clustered databases, Oracle Exadata, clustered warehouses. Nutanix was a clustered data center with pure software. So we've done a really good job of data, and I said any new company has to be rooted in one of my big moats, which is data, if we can do data reliably, availably. So that was kind of the physics of DevRev as data. We have to be really good at data. But then we also looked around, and one of the things I look for is commonalities. I'm like, okay, what's the base class? Many of you who do software, you know about object-oriented thinking. It's like, what's the thing that's common before you try to find things that are different? Because most of the world is good at trying to find things that are different. Like, no, that's different. But that's the last 20%. 80% of it is actually common across many things that you look around. That's design. If you actually can find the 80% commonality, you're a good design company. So we looked at business software and said, man, they're all work management tools. They just call work differently. It's called opportunities, it's called tickets, it's called incidents, it's called issues. It's all just work. So they do work management, somebody works on the work, which is people and for customers, so there's identity, and then there is things that you're delivering, product or services. So there's work identity in parts. Every SaaS company out there is doing work identity in parts. So if you can canonicalize that, and good thing is that AI eventually came and said, look, you have to really look at agentic in that way as well. So we canonicalized this into what we call a knowledge graph, and we sucked in a lot of legacy data into this knowledge graph around work, around identity, around parts. And then we built a search engine, an analytics engine, and a workflow engine. So we now have an infrastructure on which we can build apps. So we built 3 apps. We built a support app with a chatbot. We built a build app, which replaces Jira. We built a grow app, which replaces sales CRM. Now, we don't market the sales CRM yet, but we market support with chatbot. We market,
Is that what you lead with? You lead with
so then
the platform, or you lead with the application?
The 3 apps, but then GPT happened, and we said, hey, we can do better. So now, like at Paytm, they replaced Freshdesk. They
replaced it with
DevRev support. At Razorpay, they replaced the entire Jira farm with DevRev. So we've done a lot of app replacements. These are very large deals for us. But also we said, look, if you have to get a foot in the door with 100K, what would we do? It's like the way public cloud did this, like, hey, come and build a new app here. I will lift and shift you eventually to this thing, but let's build a new app. And that's how people went and really tinkered with the public cloud. So agent for us is a way of tinkering with DevRev. We have 3 agents as well. They're kind of cousins of the apps. We have a CX agent. We have a agent for software engineering, product management, and the agent for sales ops. And in the last year, they've become multi-million-dollar sort of things for us. We thought we were just going to help do this conversational UI. Obviously, we had to be really good at it. But what has emerged is that both conversational and graphical have become 2 sides of the same coin for us, because the rest of the infrastructure, the 3 engines, the knowledge graph is exactly the same. It's a very unique AI company that doesn't take sides between agents and apps. Because, in the last 20 years, the more I've seen this, people said, Windows is dead. I'm like, look at Windows now. SQL is dead. Look at SQL now. On-prem is dead. You look at on-prem now. So a lot of things that people think is dead, people think apps are dead. Apps are not dead. The graphical UI is here to stay for the specialist workforce, and for the generalist, for the window shopper, for somebody who's really coming and wants some quick and easy answers. You do need to give them conversational. So on the conversation side, we have a really good chat GPT for the company, because it has all the data that we have sucked in from your other SaaS platforms into our knowledge graph with a great search, great analytics, great workflows. So we are leading with the generalist workforce with a chat GPT-like surface, and for the specialist workforce with the 3 apps.
Terrific. Let's open it up.
Want to double click on the FDE model that you were talking about? Yeah. And in the context of when we are early stage, where we have, let's say, 10 enterprise customers in a B2B space, something we struggle a lot with is the whole idea of unreasonable hospitality, where we are doing a lot of groundwork in making every customer successful. But then that creates friction in terms of us thinking, should it all be part of the product? So when we scale now from 10 to 20 customers, the question that we're constantly asking is, should we go hire 10 more people to support the next 10 customers? Or should we be automating our product? Like, the product should speak for itself, and we can't have 5 more humans for every new account, right?
Yeah.
So I'm curious, how do you approach the balance and friction, specifically when you're this early stage and in the AI world where the whole FDE model is coming back? Love your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. We talk about this all the time, so it's very relevant for us to. So architecturally, a good platform tries to reduce the number of things it does in the operating system kernel. Like if you look at Windows or Linux, they say, look, punt it into the app. So user space is where a lot of features get done. Windows didn't try to build everything internally. They said, we'll actually give you a way to, like a firewall or a backup software or a malware detector. All these things are built in user space. And the operating system itself is lean and thin. And this, people 30 years ago talked about microkernels, So platforms should be like that, They are supposed to provide mechanisms, but leave policy to user space, to applications, because then you can customize it and configure it and all that stuff. So policy is late bound, mechanisms are early bound. And in the world that we live in today, we look at it very similarly. We're like, a lot of the features should be done through not microservices, which are actually your kernel. You can't customize it, you can't scale it. We'll talk about why it's so hard to scale microservices. But we've done a lot of these things through skills, and skills are things that your applied AI people are building, your forward deployed people. But you have to put that in a marketplace with enough configurable knobs so that the next customer can use it as well. Now that's a design challenge because most people want to code it with no configurability and move on. And then they copy paste code for the next customer and the next customer. And then you look at your GitHub, you're like, man, it's messed up. I have a GitHub per customer and that's never going to work. So it's really important you bring design to that and really make it configurable with enough knobs. Now, the good thing is that there is a new marketplace emerging with MCP. So what you had to build by hand is now coming as a shelf that you can advertise a lot of your work in. And as long as you're really anal about it, saying, look, everything has to go to MCP, it has to be a public server that we are building, we have to reuse more, and please do not copy-paste code and build GitHub sort of repositories per customer. I think good things can happen. So if you leave these invariants in place saying, I don't want a GitHub repository per customer, that will mean that people are going to build reusable code, configurable code, and then you publish it through a marketplace like MCP, so you get reusability. We think about this all the time, and I think when you look at your website, which is kind of a consumer-grade version of your MCP, you should have lots and lots of things to browse. And if you can put that as a carousel where people are browsing and it's like, wow, there's depth, there's breadth. You guys connect to so many things. You build all these things. If you don't have that, then you know that you're doing a lot of bespoke work per customer. And that's never going to scale. You become a consulting company after that. Yeah?
All that being said, though, you would still hire people, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you'll hire people. I think very quickly you realize how much you've promised. Because there's so much into security and reliability and testing and design. And so, yeah, there's no good bits without good atoms. You got to hire people to really get good software.
Absolutely. All right, who's next?
Thank you, Rajan. Hi, Dheeraj. My question is regarding picking markets for enterprise software. I know you have scaled the business in North America primarily. How do you look at Asia, India as markets for growing software businesses for the next decade?
India, we really get scale, like testing for scale. Like, Paytm is 700 million users. I'm like, man, they do like a couple of millions of workflow invocations a week. So the kind of testing that I get out of India is just par none,
So testing scale, you can test scale.
Yeah, and then it also helps you economize your software, your cloud, you understand everything about tokens and storage and compute and lambdas. Like, without lambdas, we'd never scale any of our AI, by the way. So if you folks are using Kubernetes pods and you really have to go, multi-tenant, a lot of AI companies are not multi-tenant, by the way. We are a very special company. We're multi-tenant. In fact, we're micro-tenant. We give it out to startups for free. So you guys can actually use it with nobody coming, really asking for money. But at the core, India has a lot of scale goodness you can get from here. And then you use this everywhere else because you can't build enough.
Can you build revenue? I mean, actually, we have a bunch of companies here. They're basically India plus companies, right? A lot of our software companies, Dheeraj, as you know, they come from here, but they're building for the US, which is like 70% of the room. But then now we're seeing a bunch of companies that are actually trying to build for what I call India plus. So India, Middle East, Southeast Asia. You think you can build revenue here, like large revenue base?
Yeah, I mean, look, at Nutanix, we do about 100 million a year here, 86% gross margin business. So there's definitely, and it's 4% of the business. Now, 10 years ago, at best, you could do 2% of a business out of India. In the next 10 years, as it gets to from 4 trillion to 5 to 6 to 10, you can basically chase the trillion and say that's percentage of revenue I make from it. At the 10 trillion, you should make 10% from here, if not more. Now, why does India need to deliver? Because Germany, Japan, and UK are suffering, and China is gone. So where else do you make up? You've got to make up here. So how do you make up for losing China? Germany needs to recover. Hopefully in the next 5 years, Germany recovers, France recovers, UK is still suffering. You got to make up somewhere. It's going to be India. You can probably look at 10 trillion and say, I can make 10% of my business in India, and that's a good place to be in. It's like US Federal used to be. Like US Federal, for a lot of good companies, really good companies who do federal well, is 10% of the business, You should think about these pillars: 10% US Federal, 10% India, 50% US, and then the rest of the, Europe and so on and so forth.
I have one last question. So this cohort, we're in the 11th cohort, Dheeraj, as I had mentioned. We have 23 companies. 12 of them are application AI companies. Of the application AI companies, we have 6 that are vertical AI, AI for manufacturing, AI for semiconductors, AI for US healthcare, all agentic companies. And then we have a couple of enterprise software like Neha's building for marketing and so on. What advice would you give for now? They're not trying to do what you're doing, which is, a very, very, like a compound AI company, if I can call it that. What advice would you give founders who are building, let's say, enterprise AI companies or vertical AI companies selling into large hospital systems or large banks? What advice would you give them?
So first is don't discount the mobile app and therefore design. I think it's really important.
What do you mean by don't discount the mobile app?
Many AI people think that it's all back-end magic, as opposed to, there's no AI without UI, guys. So please keep this in mind. The only 2 model companies.
So UI, you mean UI? Okay.
UI is very important. And obviously in the new day and age, with conversational, you can actually build a scalable mobile app, because now you don't need to worry about 50 buttons and pages and this and that, which is the way a lot of the banking apps here are. Look at the number of buttons. I'm like, man, I'm lost in this, right? So there's a good opportunity.
By the way, our consumers do like buttons, by the way.
Really?
Yeah. We like lots of things. If you go to an Indian restaurant, if you go to a restaurant in India, you'll have every cuisine. So actually, single cuisine restaurants don't work as well as every cuisine restaurants. Anyway, keep going.
So what I want to say is that the 2 model companies who've done well are the ones who have consumer-grade apps. Every other model company is probably 100 the size, because the way you consume AI is through UI. So doing really well in design and thinking about the mobile surface. And ChatGPT has a really good mobile app. That's why it's doing well. Not because they have a massively good model behind it. Others have it too. But it's the fact that you have a great mobile app as well. So that's one. Second is stretch your dollar, whatever it means to really think about interns and college people, left shift you're hiring. There's a lot of hunger in college. They don't have too many jobs. The way you really left shift.
Are you guys doing that? Are you hiring lots of college grads?
Absolutely.
Really? Oh, say more about that. Because everybody here wants to hire like these seasoned engineers.
Yeah, because
they cost an arm and a leg.
Because everybody thinks that, see, the thing is when you go and experience people, you spend so much time trying to convince them to come and join you.
Right.
The risk appetite, their family footprint, everything is different. They have to pay for mortgage, they have to pay for 2 cars, they have to do all that stuff. And then they need all these guarantees, which there's none in a startup. When you look for hunger, you will actually find a lot of really good people. And many, many young people are very, as long as you give them a really good platform, a culture of how they should write code or test code or deliver stuff and so on, I can tell you that the fountain of youth is the way most companies have been built. Go back 40 years, 50 years, Microsoft, Adobe, Oracle, Facebook, Google, every company out there was built on the shoulders of young people. And it's not just a correlation, it's a causation, actually. So, really go left shift, look at college, 6-month interns, there's enough schools here now that have 6-month programs. You can't interview anymore for coding because plagiarism is a feature, not a bug. Right. You're supposed to plagiarize with coding agents now. So how do you test? How do you interview?
How do you test? How do you test?
6 months internships.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Absolutely. The only way, and 3 months doesn't work because it takes a month to give them a context.
So you do a 6-month internship and then you decide whether, okay, that's interesting. How many interns do you guys have?
Oh, every year we do probably 150.
In the current company?
Yeah.
How many employees do you have now?
Yeah. 600.
600. Okay. 150 interns.
Yeah.
So 25% of your company is interns.
Absolutely.
Who are there for 6 months and then you convert them.
Absolutely.
This is an idea. Right.
And honestly, it's win-win. It's a win-win. They have hunger, you have hunger. Because the thing is, what are you really testing for? You're testing for hunger. And it's hard to get hunger right, People who bring hunger, i.e. also called attitude, are the people who'll actually make your company.
That's a great one. Oh, there's a question back there.
Okay. So you mentioned hiring younger people. compared to older people. So
Hiring
for
young
FD
people.
By the way, I didn't say older or younger guys.
Yeah. Or
and
more
He
experienced.
said hire hungry people.
Yes, hungry
Experienced people. So with the FDE model, and we're also trying to follow that FDE model, you need engineers who can go understand customer problems, just work with them, implement it. How are you getting that with interns then? And is there a way to filter for interns to hire?
Yeah, I mean, look, and I'm not saying that everybody should
You don't
be,
have your interns be FTEs, do you?
No, I mean, they could be in the back office. They could be coding. They could be doing some POCs, things of that nature. But there's an echo delta model. Echoes could be people out of MBA schools, for example. Really good, expressive people. They know how to really connect to life and business and solutions and things like that. There's a need for that in AI now, is to, because in many ways what AI is going to do is to miniaturize McKinsey. Okay, you don't need a McKinsey to just come and give you theory when it can give you practice and software and solutions and so on. So you need to still miniaturize the virtues of McKinsey, which is what the Echo does. And then the Delta can be your engineer who can actually do the rest of the stuff. But yeah, you got to mix and match. I never said all young people. You do need to actually balance the two sides as well. Because either my partners come up with applied AI people, which we are now building a lot of partner ecosystem, but you got to figure out a way to educate them, test them. Because you have to also examine, trust the partners and verify a lot, because they're going to sell complexity galore, if you leave it to them. So this combination of my full-time people, but also who in the partners community can actually go and deliver some of this work as well, is probably the hardest problem I'm trying to solve for right now. And it's not easy. Palantir said we're going to have to vertically integrate everything, own everybody. And I'm like, no, there's a better way to do this with partners as well. It's probably one of the hardest things we'll actually do in the coming 3 years.
Would you mind elaborating on that? What is the way to do it with
Partners. Can you elaborate on what you mean by partners? And also, maybe talk a little bit about, for early companies, if you're at a few million, these guys 3, 4, 5 million of revenue, at what stage, so what do you mean by partners? I think that's what he wants to know.
Yeah.
And then at what stage do these partners make sense if you're a...
It probably will come when you're doing around 50 million or something in ARR, because partners are also unwilling to actually go build a business for you. Nobody else will build your brand. You have to build your own brand, remember? So given that, if you try to recruit a partner, it'll take you much longer than you to go and really deliver it yourself. But at some point, you know that this is not going to scale. See, initially you do unscalable things. And the unscalable things is to have your own people who go deliver, but eventually how do you make it scalable will be through a bunch of people who really your ecosystem people as opposed to your people who are sitting on your payrolls. Yeah?
All right, terrific.
Thank you.
With that, I think we're going to wrap up. Dheeraj, thank you for joining us.
Thank
You've
you.
always been so gracious with your time.
Absolutely.
Let's give him a big round of applause.